Great. It looks like a lot of folks are on, so I guess we can get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our New York City Corporate Volunteer Council meeting. We're really excited for today's presentation to share more about the Volunteers for Small Business Recovery program, which we're launching in partnership with Common Impact and in consultation with Small Business Services. This program has been in the making for quite a while now, and so I'm sure some of you have heard us talking about it in the past few months, so we're really excited to be able to finally share more information today on the program. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shilpa Jackman. I'm Director of Public-Private Partnerships at NYC Service. And yeah, so I'll just go over a few housekeeping things before we get started. Please stay on mute unless you're the designated speaker at the moment. The chat feature is open, so you can feel free to submit questions there. We will have a Q&A section at the end, so we'll be answering all questions there at the end, and we will also have frequently asked questions there. So we've left plenty of time for that. When you're speaking, please, if you could identify yourself, saying your name, your role in your company, that would be helpful for everyone. And just a note that the session is being recorded, and following the meeting that we'll be sharing the recording as well as the deck and additional information. So yeah, so for today's meeting, we'll be talking mainly about, as I said, Volunteers for Small Business Recovery with a short welcome and NYC Service updates. And we're very pleased to be joined by Katie Stearns, who's Chief Partnerships Officer for Common Impact. They will be a key partner in all of this work, and Katie will be leading us through some of the key components of this program and really explaining all of it to all of you. In terms of NYC Service updates, I'm sure some of you may have heard that 2 weeks ago, our former Chief Service Officer, Anusha Venkatraman, was stepping down from her role to lead the nation's first racial justice commission in the city. The commission will be tasked with dismantling structural and institutional racism, as well as providing support as a charter revision commission. So we're very excited but anxiously awaiting, and as the slide said, we're pleased to announce yesterday, as some of you may have seen, that one of NYC Service's own will be taking on the Chief Service Officer role. Many of you are already familiar with Laura Rogge, who's been at NYC Service for quite some time, but I'm so pleased to introduce her today as NYC's acting Chief Service Officer, and I will just hand it off to her to say a few words and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Shilpa. And I just wanted to say hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here, for a few minutes this morning and talking with all of you. I remember many of you, I don't know if anyone on this group remembers, but for a hot second in the beginning of my time 6 years ago at NYC Service, I was working on some of the early days of the Corporate Volunteer Council. So I've met many of you through that, others through some of our youth work and our STEP mentoring program, and just other meetings and different things that we've been in throughout the years. And I'm very excited with, Danielle and I also had conversations in those early days quite a bit. Katie and I, hilariously enough, worked together at Points of Light previous to this. So there's just, all these intersections in the service world. And again, really thrilled to be here with you all. So as Shilpa said, I've been with NYC Service for a number of years. Right before this, I was the volunteer strategy director. So I've done a lot around driving volunteer strategy across the city, which was everything from emergency response, led the volunteer coordination task force for the city during COVID. We've done a lot of civic engagement research throughout the years, so I've coordinated that, worked with teams on community-based organization resources, so I'm coming in with a wealth of knowledge about what organizations are really needed or are really needing in terms of volunteering and how we make that really effective for communities themselves, and really thinking about their genuine and authentic needs and partnerships and things like that. And then youth service is also a big passion of mine, and really where a lot of my background has been over the last 20 years. So, and I think in hearing from Shilpa, throughout all of our meetings and collaborating with her on many things, just really wanting to emphasize, as I'm meeting with you for the first time in this role, that we really see our public-private partnerships team and the work that all of you do as our partners is such a pivotal role in NYC Service and in the city itself. Many of you have heard and know of and probably even contribute to our service year programs were really designed. Our City Service Corps program was really a public-private partnerships initiative to how do we get more people to serve in AmeriCorps positions throughout New York City. And so for the work that many of our corporate partners have done, we on average every year have about 150 to 200 service year members who are participating in that, who are gaining workforce skills, who are gaining connections and networks into city government, helping us to also diversify city government. And that really has come through the support of all of our corporate partners. And then I can't, end without saying something also and thanking so many of you for your contributions throughout the COVID-19 response in the city, that so many of the businesses really changed logistics support operations to help us transport things, to donate PPE, to mentor and connect with youth, and families who are really struggling in this moment. So it's just been amazing. And a couple stats from that is that we had over 40 of our corporate and business partners participating in that. And corporate partners also helped us in donating approximately 75,000 square feet of storage space, and also helping to store and transport over 100,000 pounds of PPE. And as we've all seen, that's just it's been such a huge help in this moment. And I'll just end by saying I am not looking to make any sweeping changes whatsoever. So everything you've been talking to, Shilpa and with the Corporate Volunteer Council, these are the things that we're going to continue doing. Really what I see my role as we transition into a new administration that will start next year is just how do we really tell the story of NYC Service and the work we've been doing? How do we really showcase these amazing programs our staff has worked so diligently on, the connections we've been able to make into New York City communities, through so much of our work and the work that you've all done. So I just, will end by saying I really look forward to working with you all on this. And Shilpa, I'll turn it back to you. And just so everybody knows, unfortunately, this is my first week, so I'm transitioning between 2 different schedules. So I had a previous meeting scheduled and we'll have to hop off pretty soon, but I'll look forward to joining you all in a future meeting as well. So thanks, Shilpa.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Laura. Very excited to have her on board, and I'm sure you guys will be hearing more from her as we continue and hopefully end the administration with some more successes from NYC Service. Moving on, just wanted to go over a few updates from NYC Service before we get started on the project launch today. If you could keep muted if you're not speaking, that would be great. So for April, we've been really excited about National Volunteer Month, and really at NYC Service, that means our mayoral service recognition program is in full effect. Our business volunteer survey, some of you may have already seen our link, closes Monday, April 12th. And that's really our way of hearing about all the amazing work that you've done over the past year and recognizing businesses that have really shown up and made a difference. So please submit if you haven't yet already. And for 2020, good for me, good for my city partners, the end of year reporting that you'll do on your pledges is also included in that form. So you'll just want to take a look at that. And then we're also excited to announce that we will be hosting a virtual event, Mayoral Service Recognition 2020 Rise to the Moment, which will be taking place on Thursday, April 29th from 4 to 6. We have quite a lineup coming for the event, and really excited to announce our Mayoral Service Recognition awardees, and also, focus and highlight the businesses that have completed the volunteer survey and that we would like to recognize through the program. So you'll receive more information on that early next week, but very excited for that. Also coming up, Project Move-In Day. Obviously, as the school year is ending, many students are graduating, and some of you know that NYC Service has done Project Move-In Day for a few years now. This program, in collaboration with NYC Department of Homeless Services, is really there to support high school seniors who have been part of their Future Leaders program. These are students who were residing in the shelter system yet are still managing to graduate from high school and transition to college and university in spite of some of the challenges that they may have faced. And we have been very excited in being able to support those students by providing duffel bags with college essentials, college supplies, and notes to help make that transition as successful and comfortable as possible for students, because it is such a huge change. This year in the program, we're looking to support 75 youth who are graduating from the program, and obviously all of it is not possible without our wonderful partners such as you. So we'd love for you to join us. We'll be sending out more information shortly, but if you think your business might be interested in participating, please feel free to email Cora Wolfinger, whose email is below, and I'll send in the follow-up notes. Next slide. Cool. So, and lastly, just wanted to talk really quickly about Good for Me, Good for My City 2021. As you guys know, Good for Me, Good for My City is our annual campaign to unite the business community and champion employee volunteer engagement in the city. We're really looking this year to continue upping the program, spotlighting businesses and highlighting the most valuable, impactful employee volunteer engagement efforts in the city. And we want all of you to be a part of it and to really tell us more about the amazing work that you're doing. This year, we're really, again, focusing on skills-based volunteerism, picking up from where we left off last year. And the opportunity that we're presenting today is a great way to start that volunteer engagement process. So yeah, we'd love you all to sign up for the campaign. We'll be sending out more details and the pledge forms soon. But if you'd like more information on the campaign or how you can get involved, please feel free to email our public-private partnerships coordinator, Laura Keme, and I will send that info in the follow-up as well. Yeah, and so without further ado, we'll get started on the meat of our presentation, which is our Volunteers for Small Business Recovery launch. We're so excited to be joined by Katie Stearns from Common Impact, who will be leading really a lot of the work on the program and talking about how Common Impact has designed their skills-based volunteer programs. They've really done a number of pro bono skills-based work with corporate groups, and we're very excited to be partnering on this. The program really, I think, started about 6 months ago with an idea that, you know, the small businesses were really hurting in communities. We recognized and heard from small business services just how big of an impact COVID was having on their businesses. And so a little bit more context on that landscape. There were 230,000 small businesses in New York City. Those are businesses with less than 100 employees. And these were employing about 3 million people, but there was a huge capacity constraint, mainly due to the lack of capital and investment and business infrastructure. And we can see from here, like, the representation of minority-owned small businesses in NYC was quite high, and that small businesses do represent a large part of NYC's economy. And we were recognizing, I think, in this moment that Black and Hispanic-owned businesses were underrepresented in the population of these small businesses, but also did not have access to the same opportunities to build and grow their programming. So we really wanted to try and think of a program that would be able to help these communities. And really, you know, going back to that point and the impact of COVID, it was estimated that 520,000 jobs were lost from small businesses. 1/3 of the businesses in NYC may never reopen. I think that was the stat I heard when I thought, oh my gosh, we need to do something and get our corporate partners involved to really build these businesses back up, because really small businesses are at the core of New York City communities, and their success is key to the overall economic recovery for these communities. So yeah, and as we mentioned, minority businesses are facing greater challenges because of everything that's going on with the pandemic. You know, more adversely affected Hispanic-owned businesses were due to remote work and childcare and COVID-19 spread. Also, we found that minority-owned businesses were less likely to receive government support. And approximately in our research and talking with SBS and consulting on this project, we found that over 60,000 businesses in communities across the city were affected by the pandemic. And it was such a wide range of businesses: restaurants, retail stores, salons, daycares. Really, now more than ever, we're facing a high risk of closing. And when we thought about what our business partners could offer, I think the need for really more support in navigating their challenges. SBS has put together some programming, and we wanted to find a unique place where our partners and the employees could come together, even with a limited amount of time, and make a difference for these small businesses. So really, this program is designed to kind of give some support to these businesses and help them manage all of the challenges they face as like a single person business owner, you know, doing everything and really figuring out where they can get support from folks who are experts in this field, or at least have been much more seasoned in doing this work than they have been. And so, yeah, I think that I can pass it off to Katie to talk a little bit more about the program as a whole and skills-based volunteering and how it'll work. So
thanks, Shilpa. It's so great to be with y'all this morning and to talk a little bit about this program we have been co-creating with the NYC Service team and the NYC Small Business Services team over the last couple of months. And that need that Shilpa just described was really compelling to common impact as well. I think many of you probably know us for the skills-based volunteer programs and strategies that we have provided over the last 2 decades to nonprofit organizations. But the truth is that small businesses are a critical part of the strong community ecosystem in much the same way that nonprofits are. And we also recognized through these conversations that the skills of your people, the skills of your employees, can be a really powerful force for good in helping to meet the need that small businesses have right now. When you stop and think about your own neighborhood or the neighborhoods that your employees call home, it's, you know, it's the corner bodega or the coffee shop where they know you, the salon that you go to typically monthly, or the daycare, or the family restaurant, but all of these businesses that need some specialized support as they continue to recover from the pandemic in order to set them up for the best chance of success. I was reading recently a Federal Reserve Bank study that showed some incredible statistics. Something like 56% of small businesses have had to reduce their operations in this COVID moment. 48% of them have had to modify their operations. We've all had to do that too, I know, in the nonprofit and in the private sector, but that has a really significant impact for the small businesses who have small teams and small amounts of capital to play with. And a lot of small businesses are reporting not only that their financial condition is fair or poor, but in particular, if they are BIPOC owned, that percentage goes up by something like 15 or 20%. So it was clear that we needed to do something. And in talking with the NYC Service team and the Small Businesses Services team, what we came up with is the program we're going to walk you through today called Volunteers for Small Business Recovery. And Common Impact is really pleased to be able to leverage our 20 years of expertise. We have worked with many of you on the line, as well as corporate partners across the country in more than 1,300 projects, delivering some really incredible social return on investment. And the core of the idea is that we can harness the superpowers and the skills of the private sector in order to alleviate inequality in our communities and create social change. And that's exactly what this program is designed to do. We are primarily looking to address that small business need, but we also know, and I'm sure all of you are already aware because you're part of the CVC and many of you have been part of the Good for Me, Good for My City commitment over the last year, that skills-based volunteering has some really powerful business wins as well, can create talent development opportunities for your people, wherever they are, whether they're emerging leaders or more senior leaders. There are benefits to recruitment and retention in terms of attracting folks to your company and keeping them engaged. And we've seen this to be especially the case over the last, 13 months now of this COVID moment, when folks are in the virtual environment, most of us working from home and still hungry for a connection to their colleagues, a connection to purpose, a connection to their company. And skills-based volunteering can translate really well to that virtual environment and still address those business needs while simultaneously meeting the very real community needs. So the program that we came up with, Volunteers for Small Business Recovery, is based on Common Impact's pro bono hotline model. The idea is that through this program, we'll be able to provide small businesses in some target neighborhoods in the city with about 1 hour of free virtual support, consultative guidance, or coaching that's really customized for whatever their particular business need is. And it's a great way for them to get the technical support that they need in that moment, but it's also a really wonderful skills-based volunteer experience for your employees. And it can be a pretty powerful gateway for an employee who has maybe never engaged before in a skills-based volunteer program, for them to get a sense of how their professional skills, the things that they do every day, can be really useful to creating community change. The program is designed to meet small business needs in the areas that you see here, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but broadly to ensure that the small businesses have the infrastructure and have the capacity support that they need for some of that operations modification or pivoting that they've been needing to do, and honestly will continue to need to do as we navigate vaccine rollout and whatever comes next. The two main goals for the program, as we've developed it with NYC Service and the Small Business Services team, are to be able to, like I said, primarily support the long-term viability of small businesses in New York. And the Small Business Services team shared with us as we started these conversations last fall that they had done some research and found that there were 27 priority neighborhoods which had been hardest hit by COVID in terms of the number of cases, the highest rates of rent burden, and those neighborhoods also had a disproportionate number of residents that were employed in those frontline service occupations. All of those things coming together to make it especially difficult for small businesses in that neighborhood to survive and thrive during this time. And I think it would be no surprise to any of us to know that those neighborhoods also have a really high percentage of BIPOC residents and BIPOC small business owners who have been chronically, not just in New York, but across the country, overlooked or underfunded and not had access to the same resources as Shilpa was sharing earlier with some of those statistics. So we wanted to be able to address that and ensure the viability, the long-term sustainability of those bodegas and bookshops and retail stores that we all love to frequent. And we also recognized that the program was a great opportunity to engage your greatest asset, your people, your colleagues, in this light lift, but still high impact, skills-based volunteer opportunity. And that if we were able to make that match effectively, we had the potential of some really great impact for these small businesses. You might be wondering what is possible in an hour of consultative support. And we really see the Volunteers for Small Business Recovery Program as a way to help a small business leader get started on a solution to whatever kind of tricky or sticky challenge they might be facing. We're not going to change the world in an hour, but if we can help give them some direction, ask the right questions, suggest some resources about how to get started, then they've got more tools that they need to navigate whatever that challenge is. So if they are looking to re-up or renew or potentially change their insurance coverage, what questions should they be asking a professional? There's probably one or many people at your company who specialize in that work. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to align with the latest safety guidelines and build a strategy to implement a safety plan so that they can be open and maximize operations in this time. Or they're worried about their team from a mental health perspective, or needing to recruit some more folks or retain the ones that they have so that they can continue to have level staffing. They might just need to talk to an HR expert to get some guidance about equitable hiring practices or how to have meaningful retention conversations with their staff members. Plenty of small businesses have been trying to pivot to e-commerce or to launch an online platform. And marketing an online platform can be a whole different game than marketing a storefront. And so being able to talk with someone on your team in marketing strategy or in the digital marketing space can really help them think differently and learn of new tools and ideas that might set them up for success with that platform. All of the private sector companies that we've worked with in our past, but also all of you on the line, most of you have folks at your company who specialize in these areas, or entire departments that specialize in these areas, and the small businesses just don't. Small business owners are wearing all of the hats. They are the HR leader and the marketing expert and the safety and compliance and business continuity experts. And so being able to pair them with the specialty skills of your people can really help them get started on solving for those challenges. The way that the Volunteers for Small Business Recovery Program will work is pretty simple, and there's beauty in that. We've kept it simple intentionally. For a small business leader, once they learn about the program, which we'll be working with small business services to promote in those target neighborhoods, they will be able to submit their need for whatever advisory support or tough business challenge they're navigating. They'll tell us a little bit about that challenge and who they are. Through our matching platform here at Common Impact, we'll be able to review those details and confirm them, and also understand the urgency of the small business leader's request. And then we'll be able to match them to a volunteer, get that volunteer and small business leader connected by email so that those two can schedule time to connect by phone, by Zoom, whatever is most effective for them. That 1 hour conversation takes place with the volunteer being able to provide some customized support to the small business leader. And then we'll get feedback from the small business leader about how that call went and if they were able to get the support that they needed. On the volunteer side, it's very similar. Volunteers will sign up, indicate interest in participating in the program. They'll fill out a skills survey so that we can understand what their specialty is and how broad their skill sets are, how deep they are in terms of levels of expertise. That 4 or 5 minute survey online. That same matching platform will help us identify which volunteers are a match for the small business need. And then we'll make that connection. The volunteer will be able to chat with the small business leader, and we'll also ask the volunteer for feedback about the experience and if they have any suggestions for continuing to improve it, because this is, of course, a pilot program. As you think about some of the skills that you might have within your own company, I know for me, it can be daunting to consider supporting a small business because I've never owned or run a small business. The same is probably true for most of your employees, but the truth is, these broad skill sets, these functional areas that they play in every day, whether that is finance or technology or marketing, have really specific applications that can support small business need. And so they may be in charge of creating the marketing strategy for your consumer retail stores or building the strategy to help you reach more potential B2B clients. But that means your employee understands digital marketing or branding, or perhaps they have PR expertise. And so these specific skill sets that you see here on the right all can have a really valuable impact for a small business leader, because like I said, they're typically wearing multiple hats. They haven't had a chance on a daily basis to swim in these waters exclusively. And so being able to talk with someone who's an expert on compensation strategy, or who knows how to recruit the best talent, or who has worked with a whole bunch of different e-commerce tools and can make some suggestions about 2 or 3 that the small business leader might want to look into as they consider that opportunity. It can be really powerful. And like I said, we're not expecting in that 1 hour to be able to present a solution with a bow on it to the small business leader, but we do see huge value in being able to give them that consultative support in these areas that will help them get started on that sticky challenge that they're navigating and hopefully set them up for long-term recovery and long-term success. As we launch this program, we are building it as a pilot. So here's a sense of what our timeline looks like. We are right now with all of you kicking off the program, telling you a little bit about it, and we'll talk in a minute about how you can raise your hand to get started and begin promoting this to employees. Later this month, we will also be kicking it off to small businesses in those 27 target neighborhoods through the support of small business services and the CBDOs in those various neighborhoods, who will help make this opportunity part of what small business owners know is in their tool belt, a resource that they're able to access. We will have volunteers and small business leaders both signing up at the same time. The goal, of course, is to make sure that we're able to have a ready pool of skills-based volunteers from all of you and from your peers across the city, so that anytime we have a small business leader submit a need, we've got a volunteer with the right skill set that we can match them with and hopefully address that need as quickly as possible. The program will be active, meaning those phone calls, those 1 hour connections will be taking place in the months of May and June. And like I mentioned, we will be getting some feedback from the small businesses and the volunteers as they are completing those calls. We'll be able to monitor how the program is going and make sure that we are keeping up with the demand from the small businesses as well as the interest from the volunteers. We'll also be able to give ongoing updates to any of the CVC members that participate in the program to let you know how many of your employees are engaging with us. And then in July, we plan to do a full evaluation of the program to be able to look at all the data we've collected and assess the results and the outcomes for both the small businesses and the volunteers, and be able to pull all of that into a report so that we can collectively determine with NYC Service and Small Business Services and all of you what the future of this kind of support might look like for small businesses in New York or small businesses in other parts of the country. hopefully your interest is piqued and maybe you're wondering what this would look like if you were to decide to join us. So I want to briefly touch on that. And then I'm sure there are questions, so we'll start to get to those in just a few moments. But we have tried to make this as seamless and streamlined for all of you as possible. So if you are interested in participating and engaging your employees, the first thing to do is to complete a quick survey, and this link will be in the chat, but also in the follow-up email that Shilpa will send out. And let us know that you're interested. You can also email us at hotline@commonimpact.org, but this is the first step, raising your hand. From there, we'll be having onboarding phone calls with each of the CVC members who want to be part of this program, where our team will walk you through the details, we'll answer any questions that you have, we'll help you think about the promotional strategy for your own employees, and we'll get you started with a number of resources to help you spread the word and hopefully engage lots of your folks in this program. We know that your plates are very full. That is just, I feel like, twice as true in these COVID times as it has been in the past. So we'll be providing any companies that do raise their hand with a bunch of plug and play resources, a volunteer toolkit that will help you copy and paste some language and put it on the intranet or in a blast email or on your internal volunteer platform, so that your employees know about this opportunity and can submit their skills survey. We'll also be equipping the employee volunteers themselves with a conversation guide so that they understand what they're signing up for and they're prepared to have an effective and meaningful conversation with that small business owner. And then Common Impact will also be providing all of the program and technology support. So those online skills surveys that I mentioned, as well as the matching technology that will help us get your employee volunteers matched to the right small business owners, and the evaluation and surveys that will happen after the call so we can assess how things are going. Any companies that do sign up to participate in Volunteers for Small Business Recovery will be receiving regular updates from the Common Impact team. So we'll be able to let you know how many of your employees have signed up, how many of them have been matched, how many of those calls have been completed. We really want to be your right hand in making rollout of this program within your company as easy as possible, so that we can engage as many of your employees as possible in supporting these small business needs. When we started thinking about this program, one of the first things that we did was have conversations with a couple of the CVC members to get some feedback and to hear some questions. So we have heard a couple of FAQ that we'll start with, questions that might be running through your head about the program. And then we'll open it up. So if you've got a question in just a minute, we'll have space for that either in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask it as well. But we thought we would start with a few of the ones we've been hearing. So the first, how many volunteers is my company expected to provide? This is really up to you. We would love it if all of the CVC members raised their hand and decided to make this opportunity available to their entire workforce or their entire New York City team. But really, you can fit this into your strategy in the way that makes the most sense. So if you want to be able to promote this to a particular ERG or a particular level of employee or a particular department, that's okay with us. We're happy to customize this with you. And you can engage 5 employee volunteers, you can engage 50. It really should fit into what you're offering. And we hope many of you will share it broadly, but we want it to make sense within the context of the other programs that you're making available to employees. We are anticipating that small business leaders are going to be requesting a wide variety of types of support. But if for some reason one of your employees were to sign up and their skill set was not a match for a small business need at that time, We would communicate with you about that. We'd communicate with the volunteer about that. The great news is, because this program will be running and active for 2 months, it's always possible that a small business need will come in and we'll ultimately be able to match that employee. But we want to make this a great volunteer experience for the individual employees. So we'll be taking really good care to make sure to provide ongoing communication and that excellent service to both the individual employee volunteers and to all of the CVC partners who opt in as well. Employee signup is going to be tracked via that skills survey, that online platform that I mentioned. And while you can't see the back end of it, you will be getting those regular updates from the Common Impact team about how many employees have signed up for the program and how many have been matched. We know that you have internal reporting to do, and it will help drive further communication. So at least on a bi-weekly basis, we'll be able to provide updates about how many of your employees have signed up for the program and how many of them have already been engaged. And then just a couple more logistical questions I want to touch on. We did hear a question about non-solicitation, because we need to be careful as we engage with new partners. We are not anticipating in our conversations with NYC Service or with small business services that this will be a problem. But if there were to be an unusual situation with a small business partner soliciting your employee or your company for additional support, we would help you navigate that. So not to worry, NYC Service and Common Impact could jump into that situation. We're going to work really hard to manage the expectations of both the volunteer and the small business owners in this situation. And really the ask is for that 1 hour consultative call, and that's it. In terms of how we'll be measuring success and impact, the primary measure is going to be, are we delivering on the needs of small businesses, right? That's the reason for the program. Are we able to help them get closer to a solution? Are the consultative calls providing value on the topics that they are most interested in? And we'll be gathering that data via the post-call surveys that we're conducting, and then reporting on that to NYC Service and all of the companies that participate. We'll also be looking to see if there are outcomes changes for any of the small businesses, if they're able to roll out a new tool or accelerate their plan for e-commerce or successfully accomplish their HR related goals. And we're also really interested to see what participation will look like. We've approached this as a pilot program to see what the response is from both small businesses and from companies. So that will be another measure for success. And for you all, we hope that success would look like a meaningful, enthusiastic response from your employees, a chance for them to get more connected to small businesses across New York, feel that sticky relationship with their community, and a chance hopefully for them to understand the power that their skills can have when they apply them to social change. That's a lot of talking from me, and I'm seeing the chat light up over here. So we would love to take your questions. My colleagues, Elizabeth and Deborah, are on the line. So let me pause here and see what questions folks have. Like I said, feel free to use the chat, or if you want to come off mute and ask your question out loud, that's great as well. Would love to hear your voice.
Hi, I don't know if you're taking them out loud. I had a quick question. I love this idea and have some experience in this. I'm curious, how are you framing this to the small businesses in terms of what they should expect as an outcome from their 1 hour session? Because my experience has just shown me if there's not enough structure around it, it could be a little squishy, and they've now just spent an hour and both the employee and the small business feels like, okay, well, I talked a lot, you talked a lot, and I'm not really sure what to do next. And so I'm just wondering how you're framing it to them in terms of a tangible outcome from that 1 hour session, because I think that could be really important in terms of impact and how how successful this is. But I love this idea. I think I'm a big supporter of this idea.
Thank you for that. That's great. And that's a great question too, because we've been thinking about how to manage those expectations. Elizabeth, Shilpa, I'm not sure if one of you want to jump in.
Absolutely. It's a great question. Hi, everyone. This is Elizabeth Schwan-Rosenwald, Chief Program Officer for Common Impact. It's a great question, and it's important output from the engagement. We have framed the hotline, the resource, as a way of having a consultative conversation that directs you versus delivering a specific project. So the small businesses are prompted to share the challenge that they're having and where they might like someone to bounce ideas off of or a little advice. And then the call itself, the business volunteer is directed to provide that sounding board, but not to necessarily create solutions, because as we all know, you can't create solutions in an hour, but really to just help direct and maneuver them towards a pathway of success, and then to let them go from there. So it's really advisory versus project-based.
I think the other thing I'll add to that, Elizabeth, is that we've also been talking with small business services a lot in terms of recruitment and making sure that small businesses are understanding kind of the scope of what that project is and really being able to help small businesses narrow down their problem, because sometimes, they may come with a very broad concern. And so for us, as we're doing matchmaking and taking applications from small businesses, it's really about also narrowing down those concerns to one discernible piece that can be addressed within the hour conversation. So I think it's been on both sides a little bit of really trying to manage those expectations.
Thank you.
What other questions can we answer?
Hi, this is Armand at UBS. Thanks so much for this presentation and this opportunity. It seems really exciting. How important is it that the volunteers are based in New York City? And what sort of, does that bring a level of expertise or connectivity to the small businesses, or because of the scope of the consultative nature of the project, and for volunteers, does it maybe not matter?
I love this question, Armand. It's great to see your name on the screen. Being not based in New York myself, I would say it's terrific if the volunteers that are engaged are New York based, because they are likely to have a really strong connection. They may know the neighborhood or know the business, but I'm not sure we have exclusively required that they be New York based, so long as you're connected to the CVC and your company is part of strengthening what's happening within New York City. Shilpa, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, just echoing what Katie said, that we're not requiring, I think, employees to be in New York, but really the idea and the spirit of the program is connecting folks to people in their community. So these are also the people who are rooting for you. If you're going to a coffee shop every day and you love that coffee shop, you want to see them succeed. They're a vital place in your community. And so I think really, the spirit of the program is building that support from within the community. And so for that reason, we really strongly encourage NYC-based employees to join, but obviously happy to have other folks join as well, especially if they're familiar with New York City or familiar with sort of a city environment. I think where things might get challenging is folks who might not be familiar with the geography or the specific needs of a city, coming to address like the concerns of a community, and not really understanding some of those things could be a potential challenge. So And I think we'll also take a look at that stuff when we're doing the matchmaking in terms of finalizing and thinking about that. But yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Even with a New York City focus, if this concept is something that's appealing to you and could be meaningful for your work in other communities, we'd certainly be happy to help you think about what this could look like in other locations outside the context of the NYC Volunteers for Small Business Recovery Program. I'm curious to hear, as you're thinking about how this might play with your employees and within your larger strategy, what other questions or what other feedback you might have about this program, and if you see it being something that would make sense for your company to participate in. It's a lot to take in, I know.
I was just going to comment. I think that not speaking specifically for my company, but just in general, I think the sort of flexibility will allow for the employees to set the time and sort of work outside of like, here's the day you have to do your service, could be really appealing, because I think that's a real challenge all the time, but particularly during this pandemic, everyone's life is very complicated and managing it from home, et cetera. So I think having that flexibility could be a real draw for folks that want to commit some time, but have wonky schedules or just juggling a lot of things. I think that's a nice feature.
So true, and we're expecting the same will be true for the small business owners too, right? They have different hours than office employees do, and so the flexibility to schedule that connection for the time that makes the most sense. And also the overall time commitment, we're hoping will make it easier for folks at all levels of an organization to be able to plug in, whereas before they might not have been able to step away from their desk for a full day commitment or a long-term commitment. Any other questions we can answer? This is not your last opportunity to ask them. Certainly, for any companies that submit their interest via that survey link, we'll be happy to answer questions in a one-on-one phone call with the Common Impact team. And I know we'd all be happy to take questions by email or to stay on the line here even this morning to answer questions. But are there any others folks want to ask for the good of the group while we're all together? Okay, well, just a reminder of next steps if you are interested in participating. It's to indicate your interest by April 20th. We've set that date so that we've got time to help you get promotion and internal recruitment up and running so that the program can be active and those matches can be taking place and the calls can be occurring in May and June. So that survey link is in the chat, but I know will also be in Shilpa's follow-up email. And if you have other questions as you continue to think about this opportunity and how Volunteers for Small Business Recovery might work for your people and for your company, we'd be happy to answer them. I know any member of the Common Impact team or the NYC Service Public-Private Partnerships team would be happy to answer questions and help you think about how this might be part of your small business and skills-based volunteer programming in 2021.
Yeah, and with that, I'll say thank you all for joining us as well. Obviously, all of our CVC meetings are definitely a way that we share the community need. And I think this one has been particularly important to us because it's also given us an opportunity to share with you all on how to really tangibly give back and get your employees involved. So hope you all will join us. And as Katie said, we'll stay on the line for any questions that folks have or any other comments. But yeah, really hoping that you all will sign up and keep an eye out for all of the follow-up shortly. So thank you.
If you are sticking around to ask a question, feel free to take yourself off mute or put it in the chat. We're happy to answer it.